What is tax planning is what we're talking about today in the East Central Business Show. I'm John Naylor. I'm joined by a resident expert and accountant, Robert King from Xperion Accountants.
Good to be here, John.
Good morning. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Now, this little extra gold nugget here, or this one I thought was a good one to touch on, in addition to this series we're doing with you. What is tax planning? You know, I haven't seen you for months. You've been like, oh, I can't come. We're doing tax planning. I'm pretty sure he's on holidays. Not true.
Not true. Look, May and June is our absolute busiest time of year for a couple of reasons, but primarily that we're doing tax planning for clients at that time of year. So what that typically means for business clients more than anything else is we actually, rather than being reactive on what tax they might have to pay, we're sort of planning for it. Now, you can't always get rid of all your tax. Sometimes you do have to pay a bit of tax, and that's a good thing. Means you've had a good year.
Yes.
But it's a matter of knowing what that number is sooner rather than later, so that you can provision for it if you need to.
Yeah. No, that starts back in March and April, those sort of things. So
yeah. So typically, what we do is first thing we need is a good set of numbers. So some numbers that we can rely on to estimate what the year's going to look like. Quite often that triggers comes the end of March because people do their March BAS.
Okay, the quarterly BAS, yep.
As soon as they've done their March BAS, we say, let's push the button, let's estimate what your last quarter is going to look like based on your first 3 quarters. If there's anything unusual in there, if you get a big contract or you lost a big contract, we factor that into the calculations to try and come up with what your 30 June figures are going to look like. From that, we then say, based on those numbers, this is the amount of tax you're likely to have to pay. And then we try and see if we can massage the numbers. I like the word massage when it comes to tax, to try and reduce the tax that you might have to pay. Or it might be that you don't have a tax problem. We say, yep, it's all fine. You don't have any problems at all.
Okay, all right. Now, I know that you're a big fan of super as a way that you can sort the problem out quickly and that sort of thing. And I think you've mentioned previously in this series you've talked about the 5 ways to save tax type thing as part of a 30-point plan almost you've got. That's on the website somewhere?
Yeah, we've got on our website a what we call a simple 30 simple ways to reduce your tax. And they just sort of prompt us for clients to say, well, when we do your year-end tax planning, these are the things that we're most likely going to touch on and talk to you about, and then we can expand on those things as well. And certainly super is a big part of that, putting in super. And super is a good example. That's something that has to be done before 30th of June. Whereas people if they don't do any tax planning, they get to doing their tax return and they say, can I put money into super? It's like, well, it's too late. Had to have been done before 30th of June.
Okay, yeah.
So that's a really good example of why we do tax planning.
Yeah, okay. Now, how about the threshold for this being a worthwhile process for business? Myself as a small business operator, sole trader, I'm transparent about that. It's like, I kind of think, well, I'm not quite there yet in terms of, is there a threshold point in terms of like taxable income or expectation about the amount of tax you're going to pay?
There's no real threshold. Quite often the trigger is if your business has had a better year than it had in the previous year. Because if you've had a better year than the previous year, then there's a good chance you're going to have to pay more tax than the previous year.
Sure.
And quite often if you're already paying some tax, the tax office will have you on a quarterly system where you pay a little bit of tax as you go along. But again, if you've had a really good year, there's going to be that extra top-up tax. So it's not just your threshold, it's how you went in respect to the previous year as well.
Okay. And I suppose as far as like tax planning for beginners, there's like, it could be as simple as a bit of a phone call to just go over some of the numbers, as opposed to a hardcore tax plan or tax planning where there's a very large tax implication, tens of thousands of dollars, if not a lot more.
Yep, you're exactly right. So we've got those, I suppose, 2 types of clients. Those that do what we call an official tax session, and that's fairly in-depth, and there's probably about an hour meeting involved with that. And it's usually, I suppose they're I won't call them our better clients, I shouldn't use that term, but probably our more profitable clients go through that process.
They're more troubled, I'd say there's more troubled.
More profitable, I'll use that word. But you're right, we do have the other clients who just get on the phone to us and say, look, can you have a quick look at my numbers? And while I'm on the phone, mostly they're on Xero, so I'll just log into their Xero file, have a look and say, well, this is the profit you've done. approximate depreciation, you can put this into super, do that. You can probably do a 15-minute conversation with someone around numbers, rather than doing a full-blown tax planning session.
So what you're saying is don't be scared to lift the phone and speak to your accountant, even if you're a small business and you don't sort of perceive there's a whole lot can be done. There's probably something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've mentioned...
Is it a bit late? It's after June 3rd. Is it a bit late now?
It's a little bit too late. There are some things we can do after 30 June, but a lot of things we need to do before 30 June. And we talked about having different structures, and maybe you might need to set up some structures to reduce your tax as well. So better do it before 30 June.
All right. That's a good reason to have a talk to your accountant. Now, how do people get in contact with you, Robert?
Yep. If you're not an existing client, jump onto our website. You'll find all our details there, Xperion.com.au. If you're an existing client, pick up the phone, give us a call.
All right. Probably a little bit late for this year around tax planning, but there's always next year. And obviously a real good reason to talk to the guys at Xperion. So that's another episode done, the Ease Central Business Show. We'll talk to you next time. So thank you very much, Robert, for being the resident expert accountant on the Central Business Show. And so just in this little post-roll segment, let's just talk briefly about who Xperion are and the sort of client you like to talk to. We've got 2 minutes, let's go.
2 minutes, all right. We like to think we're a little bit different to other accountants out there. We like to wear, as you can see, jeans and a t-shirt and a jacket, as opposed to your typical accountant who wears a suit and tie and sits behind his desk all day. So we're a little bit...
Don Johnson of accountants.
I didn't want to say anything, but now you've mentioned it, so you could be right. I think we're a little bit more approachable than a lot of other accountants out there. And as I've said in the past, one of our philosophies is not to charge people for phone calls. We don't want people sitting there afraid to ask us a question because they're going to get billed for the time.
Okay, fabulous. Now, importantly, the disclaimer. In these video segments we do, is it advice?
Yeah, look, and that's very important. It's general advice only. It's a conversation starter. If you've heard something in this video that appeals to you that you need specific advice on, come and talk to us. We need to know what a client's individual circumstances are before we can give them tailored advice to suit their requirements.
Okay, the best way for them to do that is jump on your website and find the best phone number or best means to contact you.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few different offices around, so we've got some different phone numbers depending on where the client's located. But if you jump on our website, you can flick through an email or give us a call on the appropriate
and that website
office.
Is?
Xperion.com.au.
Okay, very active on Facebook, so check out their Facebook page as well. That's where you'll find these videos as well.
Perfect. Thanks
Happy
for having
with
me.
that?
Pleasure.
All right, fabulous. We'll see you next time.